Hello and welcome to the second to last episode of School Spirits, which is kind of a bummer because it's been fun covering it all these weeks, but so much happened in this episode, so let's just get into it. Sai walks in and he tells Nicole that she was supposed to pick him up for school that day, and he comments that she's been AWOL all weekend not answering his texts. She makes an excuse that her portfolio is a mess and she's been busy with uni applications, and Sai says that he's also got some uni stuff to do for Northwestern that day. Remember, this is the same university that Maddie was planning on going to. By the way, when Simon had walked in, Nicole was looking at a folder with photos of only Maddie. Is this her portfolio? Because if so, yes it is. It's giving potential, I don't know, did Nicole have a crush on Maddie or was in love with her? I think it's weird. Simon is really skeptical of Mr. South being the murderer, and to be fair to him, if the potential murder is being pinned on Mr. South, Simon will probably leave it at that and be grateful that someone else is going to take the fall, so this makes me think that it isn't him. Nicole is acting hella suspicious though, more than usual. Simon wants to know how Maddie's mom took it when the sheriff told her that they found what could have been the murder weapon. Remember, Nicole was there. Nicole is clearly not comfortable talking about it, and Simon then sees the photos of Maddie in Nicole's portfolio and he's all of us, because he says that it's a little intense. It seems like a lot of Maddie. The Spirit Club is doing mock trial today. The kids aren't focused on that though. They're mostly concerned about Mr. South being taken in for Maddie's murder. Charlie asks Maddie if she ever did anything to make Mr. South angry, and Wally points out to Mr. Martin that mock trial was so boring last year and nobody wants to actually do it. Maddie starts to walk away then, saying that this won't help her access her repressed memories in order to help Mr. South. And Mr. Martin says in quite an aggressive tone that she should sit down. He tells her that whether she remembers what happened to her or not won't help Mr. South anyway, because they have no influence or sway in the alive world. And then he asks, do we? And he asks that in a way that suggests that he suspects that Maddie somehow might have some influence or sway, and that the kids are hiding something. Wally shows everybody this book that he'd taken out from the library on how to retrieve lost memories through triggers like taste, touch and smell. He tells Maddie that they're going to help her through this. Also, is it just me or is Rhonda acting a little off? Not hostile, but a little less helpful than usual. I would think that this is just Rhonda being Rhonda, because she's hardly a ray of sunshine, even on her best days, but given how frantically she was searching for something in last week's episode, I don't know, she might be up to something. I kind of don't think that it's connected to Maddie, but something's happening there. Then we see Nicole incinerate some of the photos from her portfolio of Maddie. Maddie's mom, Sandra, meanwhile, is in full-blown relapse. Wally is trying to get Maddie to trigger some memories, but it doesn't work. I may have spoken too soon about Rhonda, by the way, because she's there helping. Claire, Xavier, and Simon are discussing how Mr. South can't be guilty. Sai thinks that he was the target, actually, like he was set up, and Xavier points out that Mr. South was in the toilet all of 8th period fixing a window. He knows because he was there the whole time trying to unlock Maddie's phone, and he knows that Mr. South was there the whole time because Mr. South wouldn't stop whistling the theme of Titanic. They all suggest maybe going to the sheriff's department to see what other evidence that there is against Mr. South. Nicole, who has been suspiciously quiet up until this point, speaks up and she questions why Claire's all of a sudden playing detective when before she couldn't care less about Maddie. Sai talks to her then on the side and asks if she's okay. Is this just the stress from her portfolio thing, or is there something else going on? The group's methods for getting Maddie to remember aren't working, and one of them suggests hypnosis. The red-haired girl, Dawn, warns the group against that, saying that it's too risky. It's like having a vacancy sign above your head and any other spirit can just walk in there and stay in your head. She says that what they should have is an anti-seance. A representative from Northwestern University asks Simon why he wants to go there. He says a bunch of things, and then he also mentions that it was all he and Maddie spoke about going there. Maddie walks in then, and when Sai is asked what his passions are, he says that he's not sure he has any. Maddie can't believe this. She points out to Sai that he read Crime and Punishment in a weekend, and he also wrote a letter to the movie director, Guillermo del Toro, and he'd responded. Like, why is he acting so bland, basically? The representative asks some other questions, and Simon bungles the whole thing, not really expressing any interest, and he's actually quite dismissive and rude, especially since she's taking the time to get to know him. And it's kind of wild to me that American universities do this for all the students who might go there. Anyway, Sai rushes off, and he's for sure not getting in. He finds Xavier and Claire out in the parking lot. Claire has just taken a baseball bat to her car window, and that'll give her access to the sheriff's department under the guise of filing a complaint about being stalked and harassed by someone at the school. Since Mr. South is in custody, that would rule him out. Anyway, while she's doing that, somehow Xavier and Sai are going to access the evidence room. Claire smashing her car windows like that is such a rich girl move, but I love these three working together. Nicole, meanwhile, has been wanting to use one of the school computers, one in particular, and she's impatiently waiting for the kid who's on it to be done. The teacher tells her to sign her name and reserve it and come back, wait her turn basically. And she does write her name down, but she's still really impatient, kind of hanging around in the corner. Claire goes to file her complaint, and I should point out that at this time, she's interrupted by another policeman telling Xavier's father that Maddie's mother just called in to report somebody perhaps breaking into her house. Xavier manages to get the keys to the evidence locker, and then, Simon looks in the evidence box and he sees a photo of the boot print that they found in the woods, that Nicole, Xavier, and Maddie's mom found in the woods. He asks Xavier then if he was there when Nicole found the boot print, and Xavier says no, they had actually split up, and Sai says that this is not Maddie's boot print. Nicole threatens the kid at the computer to scoot, and she asks the teacher whether the files on the computer's hard drives are still saved after deletion, and he says nothing's really deleted, you just need to know where to look. Simon fills Maddie in on the fact that the boot print wasn't really hers, but that somebody set it up so that people would think that she went through the woods. Maddie is still concerned that Sai bungled his interview, and he basically says, well, what's the point? We were going to do all that stuff together and now you're gone. He tells Maddie that Nicole has been acting really strange, and Maddie just thinks that that's grief, but Sai thinks that it's guilt, or it could be resentment. Then we get a memory of the three of them. We get a glimpse into their dynamic as friends, and I understand now why they didn't reveal it at first. See, it was Sai and Maddie who were thick as thieves, and they both had very similar interests. I wouldn't say that Nicole was a third wheel in the friendship, it's just that she was quite different from them, and she tried to copy everything about Maddie to fit in with them, when that wasn't really necessary. Sai often called her out on it, but in kind of a joking way. So did Maddie, but in this memory, we see that it's clearly upset Nicole, and she goes, "F you guys, I guess I'm a pathetic copycat loser," and she walks away. Mr. South spots Maddie's mom leaving the grocery store and tries to tell her that he did not harm her daughter. She ignores him and drives away, almost knocking him over. Mr. Martin is getting very frustrated at Rhonda, who's helping Maddie. He points out that Maddie's been there for weeks and she's yet to have one foot planted in the afterlife. He thinks that Rhonda, who he knows wants to cross over, isn't taking things very seriously. Mr. Martin's demeanor is very suspicious here. He seems to be growing increasingly agitated as the episodes go by. The spirit kids put on their anti-sounds so that Maddie can be transported back to her last day alive at school. It doesn't work, but Dawn does relive her last memories, and she's pretty traumatized by it, remembering how mean the girls were to her. Claire and Xavier are looking around the janitor's schedule. They find it and see who was at school the day the video of Mr. Anderson and Claire was shot. Simon comes in then, and Claire fills him in that it was just the cheerleaders and the AV crew who were at school that day. And she tells Sai to talk to Nicole because she was definitely there. Nicole has skipped class, and both Xavier and Sai find it suspicious. He tells Maddie that there is a good chance that Nicole took the video of Mr. Anderson and Claire and looked for his number on Maddie's phone and sent that video to him, and that's why he thought that it was Maddie. Maddie doesn't want to believe it, but she thinks that Sai is right about finding out. She admits that maybe they hurt Nicole more than they thought. Then Sai admits that he loves Maddie. He says that he doesn't even know why he's trying to solve this because that will likely mean that she'll cross over and be gone. He's in tears, and for the first time I actually feel for him, but I'm not into this him being in love with her storyline. I mean, we all saw it coming. It just feels a little unnecessary. If it weren't for Claire, I would actually think that if there were to be a love triangle, it would be between Xavier, Wally, and Maddie. Xavier's father thinks that Xavier was tampering with evidence. You see, one of the policemen saw Xavier and somebody else leaving the evidence room. His father's really mean, calling Xavier a loser, and Claire comes by, sticks up for Xavier, and she calls the dad a bully. Nicole is still at the computer trying to permanently delete the Mr. Anderson and Claire video. Sai and Maddie walk in then, and he confronts Nicole about the blueprint and the video, but she denies it all. He asks her what really happened. He asks her what she needed money for, and she says that she needed to be closer to Sai and Maddie. She wanted to move to Chicago to be near their college, because she didn't get into either one of her art schools. A counselor had told her that based off her portfolio, she wouldn't get a scholarship and her parents couldn't afford to send her to Chicago otherwise. She admits that she screwed up, that she didn't know that Maddie was the only one that had Mr. Anderson's number. She says that she spent weeks thinking that she was the reason Maddie got hurt. Anyway, Simon and Nicole end up making up and he asks Nicole where the money is, because if she turns the money in, it'll help prove Mr. South's innocence. Maddie's mom is in her room and it looks like she's holding an envelope that might have money in it. We're not shown the contents of the envelope, but she hides the envelope in a drawer. Maddie and Dawn have a moment. Dawn apologizes for not being able to help Maddie, and Maddie apologizes to Dawn and says that she's sorry that anybody might have made her feel like a loser, because she isn't. She's a good person. Then the camera lingers on Dawn. She looks really at peace. The lights flicker, and just then the spirit kids, or Charlie, asks if anybody has seen Dawn. They realize then that Dawn has crossed over, but none of them remember this happening, that moment with the lights flickering and the bright lights, when Janet left. Mr. Martin also senses this. Cy and Nicole go to dig up the money, but it's not there anymore. She says that she drove straight from Sandra's house, Maddie's mom, to bury the money, and Cy asks if Sandra could have followed her. Just then, Maddie, who's busy watching them from inside of the school gates, has a flashback of her mom drunk calling her a brat. Nicole is sure that nobody followed her, but they do hear something in the woods and they kind of run off. Maddie has another flashback of arguing with her mom, and behind her mom, really quickly and kind of blurry, we see what looks like a crowbar. The other spirit kids come to her and she says that she needs to talk to her mother because she thinks that her mother may have killed her. And that's episode 7 of School Spirits. If you have any thoughts, feel free to share, and thank you for watching.